Once we've resolved our debt and the sanctions are removed, I have no doubt that Zimbabwe will be a place for all to live in. But Zimbabwe must also find peace with itself. Hence, these elections are very necessary and important in that roadmap. We must have an election that is beyond reproach, an election that does not leave any one of us crying foul. I think it's in the interest of each and every Zimbabwean to reward or disappoint those who abuse their positions or authority. The elections must be held in a manner that we can all be able to congratulate whoever was won and say, let us all unite as Zimbabweans to confront the challenges that face our people, the sanctions on our society. Let's do more. And I think the time is now for us to come together and form a government that works for all Zimbabweans.
Well, thank you so much, Mr. Kasukuwere, for responding to that. If you're just joining us, guys, today we have an interview with Saviour Kasukuwere, one of the potential candidates running for presidency in Zimbabwe. But Mr. Kasukuwere, speak about the issue of sanctions in Zimbabwe. You're part of the Mugabe-led government as a minister there. You have seen also the gold mafia scandal and also the documentary, right? What's the problem facing Zimbabwe now? Is it sanctions or corruption?
Well, it has now become a twin evil. These are twin brothers. Those who are corrupt will use sanctions as an excuse. And equally, it's because sanctions are there. They have given room for this malfeasance. Because we can't trade openly with the rest of the world. We can't access lines of credit. And clearly, once the country has individuals who are sanctioned, the country also gets part of the flak. And in a big way, this has affected our country. But it is now that challenge of sanctions has given room now to the corrupt to say, I'm doing this because I'm trying to evade sanctions. So to me, it's the twin challenge of corruption and sanctions. They are all walking in our streets and injuring the interests of our people.
Well, thank you. Thank you for responding to that, Mr. Kasukuwere. Brighton spoke about the Mugabe-led government. I would like to ask you that you were in the Mugabe-led government. Do you have any regrets about some things that happened under the leadership of Mugabe, like violence and mismanagement of government funds?
Clearly, we take a collective responsibility. There is a lot that happened that was not right. There's a lot that happened also that was correct. But it is those mistakes of the past that actually should help us craft a new way forward that avoids those pitfalls.
Well, thanks so much for that response. I'm just looking at the questions and contributions here. Guys, if you want to ask questions, please do share your questions there under the space. This morning, I'm going to read out your questions and Saviour Kasukuwere is going to respond to those questions. Let me just read a few questions there. Someone says, the bad Zimbabwe Saviour helped to create. He wants now to undo. Why the change? Someone says, how will he address the issue of Kukuraundi? And someone says, good morning, Saviour Kasukuwere. Please ask the following questions. All right, I'm going to ask those ones. Yeah, but Mr. Kasukuwere, how will you solve the issue of Kukuraundi? Someone is asking there, how will you solve the issue of Kukuraundi, in particular for the people of Matabeleland?
Very important. First thing that I will do, and this is also captured in our reconciliation pillar, which is pillar number 2. The first thing that we're going to have is a national healing and reconciliation summit, where for the first time we must put closure to this matter by acknowledging the evils of the past, the mistakes that were made, compensation, bring about. We will be proposing in our manifesto a huge equalization fund, which is aimed at bringing up Matabeleland, the issue of birth certificates for our people there, the issue of acknowledging the wrong that happened in Matabeleland cannot be overemphasized. We have to play catch up with Matabeleland. We've got to restore its economy. We have to revive Bulawayo. There is a lot that must be done so that Matabeleland catches up. But more importantly on the Kukuraundi is to acknowledge the mistakes, apologize to the people of that region, the things that were done which were wrong. And I want to proceed very quickly and call a summit that looks at that matter. But beyond that also, there has been violence against political rivals ever since from 2000 going forward, the Mrambachina issues and so forth. We must address this once and for all and say never again. Our country does not deserve this violence. We are a small population. We are peace-loving people. Let us bury the past, but let us be responsible for whatever we do going forward. That moment of madness cannot be again allowed to happen in our country. So Matabeleland issue Kukuraundi ranks number 1, and it is going to be supported by a huge fund that will set up to bring about a closure to the situation or to the issues that have made our people in that region very dejected, felt unwanted in the part of the country. And to be honest, you can see it when you travel around the region. Many of our brothers and sisters from that region have left the country. And we should not continue to see that happen in Cholocho and everywhere people live, to go and leave South Africa. That's not what we should. Let's give each and every Zimbabwean space to develop, to grow, and accept our mistakes.
Well, thanks so much for that response. Just joining us, guys, this morning. Passenger number 34 is on board and on board on the space this morning, unpacking the issue of elections. And please do share the link of the space on your timeline so people can have this conversation. Also, share your questions on this space this morning. I think Saviour Kasukuwere speaks about the issue of coming back to Zimbabwe to contest and campaign. But remember, there was a rally in Plumtree where the PF Secretary of Administration, Dr. Openbov, said people who have crimes, they're now hiding in South Africa, but they're now opening parties in South Africa and they want to contest in Zimbabwe. And you will not allow that. Remember that day.
Yeah.
So also I want to ask him, how safe is he in terms of coming back to contest after hearing someone says, "What you will not allow people with crimes to come and contest in this coming election"? What's your response to that, Mr. Kasukuwere?
The country does not belong to Obed Mpofu. What he has is a big stomach, not the country.
Okay, and
Quite
also,
quite
interesting response there. I wasn't, looking forward to that. But yeah, what an interesting response. Yeah, Mr. Kasukuwere.
Yeah, in other words, you know what? Mpofu loves the gallery. When he sees crowds, he'll just become excited. He's like a toddler who has no limits to what he can say. If anybody must answer, he must tell us what he did with the $15 billion for the diamonds. He mustn't start on me. He knows what he did, and he must behave himself.
But we're part of the same government where Openbov was a minister as well. Do you know what happened to 15 billion?
He must answer. Obed must answer.
Quite interesting there, this morning.
Yes, and Mr. Kasukuwere, let me take you back to the issues of violence. We've spoken about Gukurahundi, and there are allegations that you're part of the violence in Mandara in 2008. What is your reaction to these allegations?
I'm so happy and glad that you have raised this matter, because many people have tried to cast aspersions on me, to make these allegations try and stick. My sister, please favor yourself. Look for the bullets. There's a report under the bullets, each man getting a bullet, and it's contained in the Africa Human Rights Watch, which was done, I think, in 2011, if I'm not mistaken. That investigation was led by Dewa Mavinga, may he so rest in peace. It's quite clear who did what, and Saviour Kasukuwere is not involved. There is this excitement to just bring me and drag me into violence issues, the Chawana massacre. Those are my relatives too. I know the people of the Meda very well. And for me, this is painful, but I hope and trust that in due course, I will also subject myself to this national healing process, reconciliation. If I did anything wrong, let me be the first one to answer for myself. But I can tell you, go read the Africa Human Rights Resource Watch. It will give you answers to what you're asking me.
Quite interesting response there. Guys, please do ask your questions there. I see 40 contributions and comments there coming through. And someone says, hello, Saviour Kasukuwere. In the event that there's a runoff, will you partner with the Triple C Nelson Chamisa or nicely park Emerson Nangaka at lower 32% mark? And then let me see other questions there. Person number 34, the issue of saying, you guys, you're boarding the flight that day and didn't board the flight. Are you scared of your life? Are you really coming to Zimbabwe to contest and campaign in Zimbabwe?
Yes. I'm coming back to Zimbabwe. I'm in politics, and I've been working in this government before. I understand exactly how we must handle and work. And this is why it was necessary for us to understand their thinking, what they were going to do, because a desperate regime must be handled just as such. When somebody is about to lose power and sees it, they fidget, they behave uncontrollably, they lose their marbles. Why proscribe other political players? I'm a presidential candidate, and I must be allowed to contest the elections in my country. And the attempt to try and stop me from coming, try to threaten. This is part of the reform I'm talking about, where institutions of our country are being weaponized. Look at what they're doing with Chamisa, where each and every rally is stopped just because somebody doesn't want to see other crowds. But someone is bashing a rented crowd. He's moving from one place to the other with the same crowd. Today, he's in Karoi, 500 buses. I mean, where on earth do you do that? And after all, people will be seated on the ground, and then he brings 2 pieces of chicken. And next thing he'll be doing is talking about some relation to God. No policy content, 0 views, 0 deliver about the rural economy. And the last question you asked me to do with I have stated we need an inclusive political strategy for our country. So I have no enemy, I have political contestants. And should 23 not produce me as the ultimate winner, I'm prepared to work with anybody who will put the interests of our country first and foremostly.
Well, thank you so much for answering those questions, Mr. Kasukuwere. There's been this talk that, there are criminal charges leveled against you, warrants of arrest and all that. Let's clear this. Are there any charges against you or any case before the courts around corruption?
I had the temerity, my sister, and the courage to fly into Harare twice. You know how we were ejected of government, and you know who took over. And after they took over, and they said there were criminals around the president, and this is exactly the charges that were leveled against us. And I say to my colleagues, I'm going back to Zimbabwe to face the music. My late mother, may her soul rest in peace, came to see me and said, my son, if you committed a crime, come and go to jail. I said, Mom, okay. I flew from Joburg with my mother, got to Harare. I was charged with border jumping. Alas, I was also acquitted. I went through a full trial and I was acquitted. The next stop was 23 September 2018, when they accused me of being a person of interest. I called the police commissioner then, was in charge, Charumbira, of the CID. I said, Charumbira, here you have charges. He had communicated this with my lawyer, Mr. Sam Kange. He says, yes. I said, what are they for? He says, corruption. I said, fine, I'm coming to answer the charges. I flew back to Harare and went to court, and I accepted the charges, and those charges were quashed. Now, what else am I supposed to do? I have not run away from any crime. I'm not a criminal. I've accepted to be charged. Should anybody have an issue with me, I am still here. If they have charges against me, they should hand them over to my lawyers. But this is exactly what we talk about. Threats, innuendos. We will not be deterred by those. That's how cowards behave. Bullies in villages behave exactly like that. I'll be in Zimbabwe at an appropriate time. I'll carry out my campaign. In any case, the campaigns that are today working are still these kind of campaigns. Radio. We talk to the people. I have every reason to believe we can campaign from wherever we are, but more importantly, rub shoulders with our people at the right time because of the security around these issues. You know, when you have cornered dangerous criminals, you must be very careful how you manage them. But we will be in Harare, we will be in Bulawayo, we will be in Masvingo, Mutare, to speak to the people. I'm not scared of anything, and there is no crime hanging over my head. That's why I came back twice to be charged.
Well, thanks so much for that response this morning. But also, Mr. Kasukuwere, we're part of this. We keep on saying this. We're part of the Mugabe cabinet, right? And now we're speaking about the issue of reform, to say the opposition party is being banned to campaign freely and so on. We're speaking about reforms, but you're part of this government under Mugabe that also was doing the same thing to Morgan Tsvangirai under MTC. What reforms are you speaking about now, as you are part of the opposition? What reforms do you want to see in Zimbabwe now in terms of elections?
Remember, Tsvangirai was my prime minister in 2009. We worked together in the same government. So some of the things that we should have dealt with then, we didn't do them together. In other words, we should have looked at some of the laws and amended them to bring about greater democracy in our country. And for that, obviously, we all agree that today you have institutions that are even now being weaponized beyond what used to happen in the past. I've never seen such callousness where on a daily basis the regulating officers are writing and banning various programs initiated by other people. You have civil servants jumping and speaking like they're politicians. You have institutions that should really not comment on some of the issues. They're commenting on them. Yes, I was in government. President Mugabe was my president, and I accept that is what happens in life. I served as a minister of cabinet. I was not the president. But also today, I have a different view of how we must handle these issues. And that's why I'm putting my hand up and saying Zimbabwe needs us all. We need to be bold and confront the issues we think must be resolved. And that's why I'm coming up. I know the lay of the land. I know the corners. I know how we must sweep clean our house and have a better country.
Well, thank you for answering that. My other question for you is, if you were to win the presidential election, would you return to ZANU-PF?
But why would I return to ZANU-PF when I won the presidential elections? I was fired from ZANU-PF, isn't it? They said they fired me. And now I'm saying as an independent, I don't have to return to ZANU-PF. I have to lead the people of Zimbabwe. The challenge before us is to build an inclusive government that brings all our people together. We have to tone down on this partisanship. I don't want maize seed being distributed any longer on the basis of a political card. I don't want any child accessing a grant or a university support on the basis of a political card. We've got to look at the politics that has led us to where we are, depolarization, toxicity. That can't be the way we run our country going into the future. If I get the mandate from the people of Zimbabwe, I'll execute it in the best interest of all Zimbabweans. Being partyless means I'm a people's candidate.
Wow, quite interesting, very conversation we're having there with Saviour Kasukuwere, one of the presidential candidates running for presidency in Zimbabwe. My name is Brighton, and I'm with my co-host Noshan Shlama there this morning. But also, Noshan, let's bring about the issue of ZEC now to say you have few days before the elections, right? And the candidates have not received the voters' roll. And Saviour Kasukuwere, let's just confirm with him if he has received the voters' roll. Say, have you received the voters' roll? And are you sure ZEC could deliver a free and fair election in Zimbabwe?
I have not received it, and I really would like to implore the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission to do what it is expected to do, that is, deliver a free and fair election. I have no doubt that the team that is there, they have integrity, they want to see transparency, they want to see account, they will have to be accountable for what they do, and they must proceed to do what the nation expects them to do. Any dilly-dallying, an attempt to provide or produce an answer or an electoral result that is contrary to the expectations of the people is not in the interest of anybody. More so when we're trying to lift our country out of the sanctions, where we expect the region to support us, to engage the world, where our of the hoods by doing it correctly.
Well, thanks so much for answering that. If you just joined us this morning, we have an interview with Saviour Kasukuwere, one of the presidential candidates running for presidency come August 23. But Mr. Kasukuwere, now, suppose I'm going to the ballot paper, I'm 23 August, and I'm politically homeless. I don't have any political party I'm supporting or I'm thinking of voting for. And I see the name Saviour Kasukuwere. Why should I vote for Saviour Kasukuwere? Give me reasons why someone should vote for you, Mr. Saviour Kasukuwere.
Well, Saviour Kasukuwere brings hope over fear. Saviour Kasukuwere is a candidate who is not carrying any baggage of corruption, inefficiency, or division. Saviour Kasukuwere is saying, all Zimbabweans, let's focus on the core responsibility of uplifting our economy and developing our nation. Saviour Kasukuwere is a candidate who says, I've been around. I'm 53 years old. I've attained that maturity, knowledge, and experience to confront the challenges that I think Zimbabweans are going through. And I've lived through the pain, the sweet, and the hard and beautiful moments in our country. I've seen it all through and through. I was the recipient of the harshness of the system, shorted, nearly left for dead, survived. I've had my own fair share of mistakes, but I'm prepared for us to move our country forward. And Saviour Kasukuwere is the place, if you want Zimbabwe next 5 years to be a better country, that is the place to go to. If you want a polarized country free of polarization, go for Saviour Kasukuwere. If you want economic development to be the daily bread and talk in our society, go for Saviour Kasukuwere. If you want a Zimbabwe that gets back into the world based on principle, unity, peace, and development, vote Saviour Kasukuwere.
Well, thank you for answering that, Mr. Kasukuwere. There have been speculations about who you're working with. Some have said, yes, I'm with Saviour Kasukuwere and all that. And people want to know, is Jonathan Moyo part of your team?
There are so many people who are part of my team, and I've not mentioned any. The chairperson of our team is Walter Mzembi, and many other colleagues who are working. We do make it a point of introducing every other senior member of our team.
Yeah, quite interesting there. You will be introducing the other senior members of the team later on. But also someone is asking here, Mr. Kasukuwere, to say, if you win this election, right, as a presidential candidate, and also maybe ZANU-PF wins 2/3 majority in parliament, or CCC wins 2/3 in majority in parliament, but you win as a president, how will you work with these people in parliament where you don't command a following in parliament or in local authority, but you've won as a president? How will you work with the opposition parties and also ZANU-PF perhaps?
There is my role as president, and it's defined in the Constitution. Parliamentarians have their duties as defined in the Constitution. I will compose a government out of the best talents we have in our country. The 2/3 majority that could be won by any political party will not deter me from working with Zimbabweans. I understand the political systems very, very well, and one of the things that does not make me fail to sleep at all is a vote of no confidence or impeachment. It won't happen. I know the players, and they are men and women who want Zimbabwe to move forward. They're sick and tired of the polarization. They're sick and tired of the division in our society. And I'm also imploring our people to make good choices. Look at the character and content of the candidate that you're going to vote for. Is he fit for purpose? Is he fit for the task? Is he going to come to parliament to advance personal interests or national interests? And they'll come and meet a president who is also very keen on advancing a national program. And that's why I talk of an inclusive political architecture. And this is what you'll see after the elections.
Yeah, quite interesting response there to say, no, I'm going to work with everyone. But also earlier on, he spoke about ZANU-PF, fired him, expelled him from ZANU-PF. But now, if he wins, become a president, right, and ZANU-PF is still in parliament, is 2/3, what chances are there that he can still work with this part that fired him? It's quite interesting there, but I didn't respond to the question when I'm asking.
Yeah, if you are just tuning in, this is This Morning on Asakhe, and today we are talking to Saviour Kasukuwere, who's running is for presidential candidacy for the 23rd of August 2023.
That's quite interesting there. But also on the issue of nomination court fees, Mr. Kasukuwere, so you paid $20,000 for presidency, and also people are paying $2,000 for members of parliament. What's your take on the issue of nomination court fees? And also now looking at the president list 11 candidates, there's no woman there. What's your take on that? And in your new government, what will you do in terms of achieving gender equality in Zimbabwe?
I start with the last question. Immediately, and this is contained in our manifesto, within 100 days, each and every board in our country must represent the demographics that we're talking about, especially between the gender. 50% gender parity. Every board that is in the country, cabinet must also achieve 50%, and there must be a quarter of those being the young people of our country. We need to be very clear. 50% must be women. 25% of the total 100% must be young people. In other words, boys, young men and young women, for them to learn the tricks of the trade. That's what I'm going to do in terms of the 50%. And your first question in relation to, no, I think I've answered your question.
The issue of nomination court, nomination court fees?
Yes, the nomination court. Yeah, quite interesting, because it's a barrier of entry for many who want to participate in the presidential election. But I don't know how they set it up, and I don't know how they came up with this amount, and what motivated them to do so. Was it to try and exclude other people, to have serious players? I wouldn't really know why they did what they did, but I guess it's It's very prohibitive for the female ladies who might have wanted to participate. I know my dear sister Linda wanted to participate in the elections, and surely she has or she had a view that should be heard. And I hope going forward, we must allow candidates to participate, but there should also be a criteria, because otherwise we might end up with a field of over 200 people who just want to go in the ballot box. So there are pros and cons to this $20,000.
Maybe to try to wrap up with this conversation this morning, I know you want to leave and you have other engagements. You have been moving around Asakhe region and meeting other leaders there to hear from them, to seek advice from them. What conversations are you having with them, and whom are you likely to meet in this coming few days?
In the few days that I'm traveling the region, more importantly is the business people, understanding the systems, understanding the growth and development of other countries in our region. You are seeing tremendous growth, opportunity in the region. I'm also meeting Zimbabweans who are based in the various countries, sharing with them my view. As opposed to going to the traditional European capitals, I took it upon myself to share my story with the regional leadership, with our people in the region, because these are the people who are affected by the outcome of our elections. And these are the people on whose shoulders we always cry. These are the people who carried our liberation struggle. It is respectful to meet with them, to go to their lands and tell them your story. I've decided to run in Zimbabwe and for the presidency, and this is what I aim to achieve. It's building our bridges, learning from them, explaining what we're trying to do and what role we can play in the development of SADC, in the rehabilitation of our economy, in the experience that they've gone through, debt rescheduling, and so forth. But more importantly, stress the need for SADC to remain a united force, but without one party dragging the other. So Zimbabwe must play its part, rise above its difficulties, and become a respected member of the SADC community.
Well, quite an interesting turn and partnerships that is talking about there, Brighton. And thank you so much, Mr. Kasukuwere, for coming to our space and sharing your story and your vision for Zimbabwe.
Thank you very much for this great opportunity. I would have loved to talk about Bulawayo and Matabeleland as a region, but I'm happy that we will find more time to discuss about how we can get the economy of that region, the cattle industry pumping again, but we can do that in the next session, and I'll be available to talk to your great radio station.
Well, thank you so much, Mr. Kasukuwere, for joining us there this morning. Guys, thank you so much, Lani, for joining us this morning. Also, if you have any contributions or any reactions to what Mr. Kasukuwere spoke about there this morning, please do request the mic. We want to hear any reactions this morning. You've heard him speaking about the issue of cook ground, how he's going to solve that. We had to speak about the issue of economy, he's going to solve the issue of economy. We had about the issue of gender equality as well. I say, within the first 100 days of office, is going to make sure every cabinet is also members of his females and also males and also young people there. So, guys, if you want to make any reactions, please do request the mic this morning. Want to hear reactions to the statement that has been made by Saviour Kasukuwere of the presidential candidates coming there to campaign on the August 23 to cast his vote as well. Quite interesting conversation we have this morning.
Yes, and while you are at that, remember at site we do not encourage hate speech, insults, bullying, and all that. So please let's share our views, our reactions with respect and without bullying others.
Right, quite interesting. Let's take one more speakers there this morning before we go. Let's see what are some of the reactions. Let's just read some of the comments as we wait for our speakers there to join us this morning. Someone says, we're tuned in. It's been a while since I tuned into your space. Love the space there this morning. And someone says, all betting both years. Okay, that one. Someone says, out of interest, how may I know when is Mr. Kasukuwere coming back to Zimbabwe if he wants to win an election? Less than 2 months away from the election. When is he coming back to campaign in Zimbabwe? So quite interesting there. Do you have a speaker there this morning? Okay, let's try to add Nonhlanhla Ngwenya there this morning. Want to hear from her in terms of her reaction to what Mr. Kasukuwere was speaking about there this morning, and taking his manifesto and giving us an election roadmap where he's going as it comes to the polls. Let's hear more speakers there this morning. People are still joining,
Yeah, Nonhlanhla, good morning. What's your reaction to Mr. Kasukuwere's submission this morning?
Good morning, Nonhlanhla. Thank you so much. And also many thanks to Mr. Kasukuwere for coming here. Quite a conversation. I don't know if I should call it interesting. I think at this moment I'm indifferent to most of the things that he said. And first of all, being the issue of Matabeleland and Gugurahundi, I think maybe if you'd want to win Matabeleland or Abantu Matabeleland or their votes, is to come up with a different strategy. We are tired of people coming and Matabeleland talking about Gugurahundi. What you have said is not different from what the Second Republic was promising Matabeleland people when it comes to Gugurahundi. So we need specific things when it comes to Gugurahundi. Come up with something that is tangible, something that people of Matabeleland can say, oh, this person is different. What he's saying is different. Okay, all right, maybe now I can vote for this person because they are bringing something different on the table. But this thing, it has become like, just a card for any politician. They go to Matabeleland, they are talking about Gugurahundi, or they are talking about Umdala Wethu, Joshua Mkabu Kanyongolo. Because they know these are issues that are in Matabeleland people's hearts. Those are issues that are, people from Matabeleland are passionate about, that they talk about. Even Emakaya, when you're young, there are certain things that people talk about. So everyone just comes and says the same thing. But so far, we've not seen anything tangible coming out from anyone. And please, it's either you come up with a new campaigning strategy, or you leave Gugurahundi issue and Matabeleland and Umdala Nkomo out of your lips when you're campaigning. Okay. Then secondly, you say you have these reforms that you are going to come up with. Come on. The Second Republic said the same thing. We have the same reforms. But right now people are complaining. You are coming from the same pool of people. So honestly, what else is different? What else are you saying that is different that we can say, oh yeah, this person actually has this for young women in Matabeleland. He has actually said this. This person has something like this for the elderly in Matabeleland. Reforms. What reforms? 5 years, 6 years from now, we'll still be saying, but you said you bring reforms. And I hope, honestly, I hope you guys, you are not buying into this. I am not campaigning him. He has every right to campaign for himself. But I'm saying, I hope you are listening to this objectively, and you are listening to each and every candidate that's going to come in Matabeleland, whether it's ZANU-PF, whether it's CCC, whether it's ZAPU, whoever comes, whether I'm independent, you listen to their manifestos objectively, and you make informed decisions when you are coming to vote. Every time when people decide they want to talk about these issues, they come to Matabeleland and Nanku. We are voting for them. 5 years down the line, we are still we're still singing the same song, crying the same tune. Why has this not happened? Why has this not happened? So honestly, I respect you, Mr. Kasukuwere, as a presidential candidate, and your bravery really to say, okay, you know what, no matter what, I'm going back to Zimbabwe and I'm going to contest. And maybe I should also applaud you, your former days when you were minister of youth. I would say that you did well as a minister of youth. Yeah, that's what I have to say. But please, can you give us specifics? If I'm a young woman from Matabeleland South, what is there for me? Angithi, what do you have in store for me? Yabo.
Well, thanks so much, Nashula, for that. I see our guest just back there. Mr. Kasukuwere, do you want to respond to that or react to that?
Yes, I think this is a very interesting contribution by my sister. Thank you very much, my sister, for acknowledging the other things that I did well. I really, really am grateful for that. And I'm a man of my word. I do exactly what I say. And I'm not politicking when I talk about Matabeleland. I was not involved in what happened in Matabeleland, and I did not come with the past government to try and handle this issue and the promises that they made over the past 5 years. And very, very, very sad and regrettable. But I have thought through this matter, not just only about Matabeleland, but the amount of anger and hatred we have had to deal with over the years. Perhaps I might just take you back into history. From 2000 to 2005, I was chairman of the Defense and Home Affairs Portfolio Committee of the Government of Parliament of Zimbabwe. And in that period, I conducted hearings in Matabeleland, in Bulawayo, to understand the questions that were facing the people insofar as accessing important documents like birth certificates and so forth. I came into direct contact with victims, with Abantu, Ashopika, because they can't get those papers because of what happened to their parents. There was no closure. I was young. I listened attentively, and up to this day, I recall the pain that Jabulo, one youngster called Jabulo, he came and narrated that he's almost now 30 years and he has not had an opportunity to get his papers because his father was killed during the Gukurahundi period. That has struck a chord in me, stuck to me to this day. And I recall then we made these contributions in government and cabinet, and I remember Bampoko and myself, Professor Moyo and Joao, I think, going to Matebeleland when he inaugurated the process of giving birth certificates. This was in Cholocho area. But that's number one. I'm talking about the personal experiences. But number two, the whole development that the people of that region have been talking about is not just only them, but it's the whole country. But we also have to accept the peculiarities that exist in that part of the country. It is the fact that there was a senseless moment, which our leadership called a moment of madness, resolved through the unity accord, but the wounds have not healed. I am proposing $1 billion facility over a 5-year period that must be aimed at addressing compensation, that is aimed at rebuilding and allowing these families who lost their parents to catch up. You'll ask me, where is this money going to come from? Zimbabwe has been losing $1 billion every year through corruption, through illicit gold trading, through various other things. Zimbabwe is a mineral resource base where we can do a proper audit, proper auctioning of our resources and assets, and build a kitty that addresses the Matebeleland question, that addresses the rural poverty in our countryside, uplifting our people. If we focus on this in the next 5 years, we will turn a new page. Colleagues, I have been living outside the country. I've lived in the country. I see the pain. Yes, give me a chance to address just this one question. Give me your ears and hear me out. If you have contributions, bring them forward. But this matter, Matebeleland, cannot be washed or put under the carpet. We need to resolve it in a just and fair manner that brings about unity and cohesion. You don't want part of your country feeling excluded, feeling that this is the talk. We need to be able to unite our people. But this is also as a result of our failure to undertake or to transform the communities by bringing greater economic activity and exchange. What have we done? Command Agriculture, for instance, has focused on giving people inputs, seeds, and so forth, fertilizer. But the situation in Matebeleland is slightly different. It's a cattle country. Their CSC, which was there as a backbone to support Ema communities, Elupane, Ema communities, Cholocho, Abantu Wange, and so forth, who are into the cattle industry. You could use that as a basis of regenerating, recreating the dynamism in those people. We started the dam construction program when I was Minister of Water. I found Baba Dabengwa, Baba Espepankomo, Mai Masuku, and others who were part of the Matebeleland Zambezi Water Trust program. Pushing that program, I then became minister. Manjur had worked on it, but then we put the dam wall. We started building that. We engaged the contractor, and we have been moving, and almost that dam is almost near completion. That's one artery that can be used to water the region. But apart from that, there is need for greater involvement into their economy. Where are they into the hunting industry? Are they involved? Are they involved in Victoria Falls? Are the people of Benga being looked after? Their fish industry. What are we investing? As we invest in Command Agriculture, Mashonaland region, we also must be investing a concomitant amount to this region, which is a peculiar requirement. Where is the Keto Command Program? Where is it? What are we doing for these people? Now, this is what's going to make a difference. I have thought through it. You cannot get Bulawayo working again if you don't address the primary productive sector, which is the agriculture. Secondly, they are mining. The youngsters in Filabusi, Bovumani are doing extremely well. They have this, I don't know what's called the ED for mining. I don't know what that means, but I know they are miners. And we need to dig deeper, train our youngsters at Pangani, Filabusi. There's a training center at Pangani. Pangani must be made to train our miners. We have the School of Mining in Bulawayo. It must be turned around into a university, broaden the skills base of our people. These are our miners. How do we bring them on board for them to make a contribution? This is specific to the region. And I'm saying so, colleagues, because I've come across many people from Atebele and Ontokozo, they're all over the country, all over the world. Youngsters, bright, want to make a contribution to the development of their country. And if the whites could get Bulawayo working, why can't we? And that's why I'm saying we address the social problems, we deal with the exclusion, I hear you, my sister, you're angry, and I'm happy you're angry. But trust me, 5 years with SK, 5 years with Saviour Kasukuwere, you'll be happy like you did when we were the youth. You know our story. When we came to Bulawayo, when we sat with the young people, when we moved things, when we tried to do whatever we did. But obviously, there was sabotage in what we're trying to do. But I don't want to go back into history. Mina umuntu wati spasia pambili. Let's move forward. Thank you very much.
Quite interesting there in response to that. But also, Mr. Kasukuwere, we'd let you go, but now you're back again to speak about the issue of land. Let's talk about the issue of land reform program. We've seen some headlines where daughters of presidents, former presidents, are owning 21 farms. Let's talk about the issue of land reform program in Zimbabwe. Do you think land reform program benefited every Zimbabwean in Zimbabwe, in particular the young people from Zimbabwe?
Well, I'm happy you've raised this question of the land reform program. My take on it, one, is an accusation has been made. I would have loved that to follow up and tell us exactly which farms are they. List the 21 farms. We just can't be moved by a divorce arrangement or somebody who marries and starts counting how many cattle his father-in-law has, how many members he has, how many farms. We want substance. If that is the case, now let's resolve that question. How do we resolve this question? We have a government policy which said one man, one farm. But beyond that, that's why I'm talking about title deeds. Men and women who have acquired our land must be prepared to pay value for what they have. Put aside the small-scale farmers, which is the AE1 farms. The A2 farms, that's where a lot of problems exist. Let's put a land tax that ensures that you utilize the land. If you're not good for it, then I'm sorry. This is a commercial asset. We have created a dead asset out of an asset which is of economic necessity. If somebody is holding 40 farms, 20 farms, let the dollars ban his or her hands and let go. I am surprised that the Mugabes have 21 farms. I'll be very surprised because I've been trying to get the details of the farms. Mnangagwa talked about it. Would have expected him to produce the evidence and say, these are the farms. We just can't talk and leave it like that. If you're keeping that silently, why? There has been a land audit, the Utete report, there is the Buka report. Both documents pointed out to who are the multiple farmers. We must resolve that by one, giving title to our farmers. Secure title, whether it's a 99-year, which is transferable, let's bring back value to the piece of land. Secondly, let those who are holding on to more than one farm feel the pinch, let it go, pay a price. Those who are in government offices, and I'm sorry I have to say this, we have a problem here, where someone is a minister, he is a farmer, he has 5,000 hectares or 3,000 hectares or whatever. He needs a government vehicle. He needs a command agriculture support implements. He also needs a loan to buy a house. I mean, there is so much that we can accept from parasites. This can be, if you're a permanent secretary and you have a farm, make a choice. Do you want to run agriculture or want to be a farmer? Let us create an activity, economic activity, out of this very important resource. Our country must be producing enough produce for world markets. We want people who attend to agriculture on a day-to-day basis. And the basis of the commission reports that were made was to unearth any malpractices, any corruption. I will crack down on that matter, resolve it to finality, bring order in this sector. No more partisanship in terms of land ownership. If you can't run a farm, you decide to sell the farm, so be it. Sell the farm and come and live with us in the village. But the land is ours, the land is Zimbabwean, it shall and will remain ours forever. And I'm worried about the current situation where those who are well-heeled, who took big piece of land, have now given away that land, this new called the subcontracting program. You can see that this is rent-seeking behavior. We must eliminate that in total and bring about order in this sector.
Well, thank you for answering that, Mr. Kasukuwere. Now, let's talk about the youth of Zimbabwe. What is your vision for the youth of Zimbabwe, especially on political mentorship, looking at the fact that they are the future of Zimbabwe?
The young people of Zimbabwe are a resource. Any country gifted with young people must say to itself, well done, thank the Lord. We have a resource. Any country like our country must look after its people. We have, that's why the Zimbabwe Youth Council, we have a very active youth act that should be implemented, the national youth policy that must be implemented. It is clear. I spoke earlier on about the 25% we must set aside for young people to be involved in government making, in decision-making boards, to say if there is a cabinet, 50-50, male and female, but 25% must be reserved. This is how we start mentoring and creating our young people. President Mugabe was correct when he appointed some of us into Politburo, into cabinet at a young age. Myself, Mzembe, Shongwane, Joao, Chidakwa, many others, was to prepare the future. But it doesn't end there. It therefore means that in all our fields of endeavor, let us create opportunities for our youths. You recall when I was Minister of Youth, we set up a fund. And this was supported by banks. And to this day, actually, Old Mutual has about 5%, 2.5%, 5% shareholding meant for the youth. We collateralized that and got 10 million years. We put up the CABS Kurero Kondla Youth Fund. We went further. We negotiated with the Stanbic Bank. They put up a $20 million facility for the youth. We discussed with CBZ Bank. It was about 3, 4, 5 million US, which young people accessed. We discussed with the ZABG Bank. It was a facility. We went to all the banks and agreed on a process. Barclays Bank then, George Guamatanga, was putting up about $5 million for women empowerment. That's, again, another Atari. It's not just only leadership in politics, but create a diversity of leaders in commerce, in industry. I've talked about mining. Young miners must be trained. Amakolkoza cannot forever live in the conditions that they live in. It is our duty to come, train, respect, legalize them so they don't become pawns or become victims of those who abuse our young people. We reduce conflict in that area. We go beyond that. Sports. I'm surprised that to this day, arrogance has cost Zimbabwe's position in soccer. We need, and this will be my measure on day one, 24th of June, two things will happen. Job Scala will be released, and secondly, I'll get our FIFA back to accept ZIFA and do away with the nonsense that is costing opportunities for young people to play their part in soccer. And we need to continue to therefore give room, and I hope, my sister, you can find an opportunity to read the National Youth Policy, which I crafted when I was Minister of Youth, in consultation with all the young people. It's clear in terms of what must be done across the whole gamut.
Well, thank you for that response, Mr. Kasukuwere. I see you have two speakers there. James of Kwanda, what's your contribution say this morning? James, please do guide with a good contribution this morning. All right, you seem to have lost gems there. But also, Mr. Kasukuwere, speak about the youth policy. You speak about the indigenization policy again. Which Zimbabweans benefited from the indigenization policy that was there under Mugabe tenure there? You're leading that policy, the indigenization policy. Which Zimbabweans benefited from that policy?
The youth fund that I've talked about came as a result of the indigenization policy. And admittedly, there might have been a perceptional challenge about what we're trying to do. But a lot happened. I'm talking about the youth. Come to the communities. We started the community trusts. Go to Gwanda today. Look at the Blanket Trust, which is shareholding in Blanket Mine, in Vumba Chibwe Mine, in PPC, in some of the smaller mines there. How much the community has benefited and has been used responsibly by our traditional leaders to build science and technical colleges in Matabeleland. I'm talking about Matabeleland South. You got Matabeleland North, we're let down by some of the miners there, arrogance, but we still have PPC, UNICEF, supporting the Mguza community. There's this trust there. We gave them money, $10 million. The same way it was done to create a fund for the Blanket Mine. We went to Ngezi. We went to go to Midlands Province. All the schools you can talk about that are new in the Midlands Province, in Shirugwi, in Shishavane, were as a result of our community share structures that we set up. I'm disappointed that government has folded its arms on this very important benefit that must accrue to the host communities. And we will certainly be reviewing that and make sure that the communities do benefit. I'm encouraged now that they are giving title mining to communities. That should have been the thing we did first, but we did that with the Marange. Out of all that Marange debacle, President Mugabe signed a concession for the Marange people for diamonds, about 7,000 hectares, if I'm not mistaken. And to this day, this community has become extremely wealthy. With good management, I can tell you, Marange will never be the same again. But we missed the boat when we didn't get the full benefits from the Angel mines. We didn't get the benefits from Marange mine. We didn't get from the other diamond mine, which was run by Yamasha Mhlanga and others. But they were committed to doing something. And our view was that the alternative is that when these resources are expended, there must be economic activity. Hence, irrigation development was necessary for the entirety of Marange. Take advantage of the Saviour River, take advantage of the entire Odzane River to bring about water and irrigation to that area, build dams out of this endowment. Now, we did that. Workers, we set up a couple of workers' trusts at Mikros. There's a workers' trust. We have an active workers' trust at Schweppes, which is 40% shareholding of the Schweppes. And we indigenized that. Msipa, our lawyer, Stanford Moyo, are shareholders of that mine, of that Schweppes. And the bottling play company has built houses for their workers who are shareholders. Go to BAT. Hear the story about the BAT workers who are benefiting from their 10% shareholding out of BAT, including the Growers Trust, which was headed by Rodoboka and others at BAT. I can go back to Old Mutual. Old Mutual workers, they told me when they came forward to say, Minister, thank you very much. They are shareholders of Old Mutual. They were given huge sums of money that allowed many of them to pay off their mortgages, do what they could do for their children in schools. So indigenization is not something that is piecemeal. It's a process, but apart from that, it's a very determined way to get our people onto the rails of the economy, get them involved. We did that, and there's no doubt that there is a lot that must be done. I shudder to think of the day I land into the office. I'll crack on the rural development. I'll empower the people in the communities. I'll give them title. I'll allow them to have access to resources, just like the well-heeled in Harare can go to the central bank. We need title of the growth points. Those fathers and mothers who supported the liberation struggle did it with the promise that Zimbabwe will be better day after independence. We forgot. Concentrated with Harare. We need to go back to those communities, bring them into the economy, and a whole economic inclusive architecture will make a difference. That's the empowerment. The land question has been handled, needs fine-tuning and closure. We move, and we have a document. I discussed this with some people I've been talking to. UNDP, we have a whole document on broad-based economic empowerment. That will be a key policy of my government.
Well, thank you much for that response. Let's go to Tsepang. Tsepang, you can go ahead and ask your question to Saviour Kasukuwere this morning.
Okay, thank you so much. So I have two questions for Saviour Kasukuwere. Question number one, how are you going to deal with the issue of the military? Considering that it is the very same military that drove you away from the country in 2017. So how are you going to deal with the military between now and 23 August? Secondly, you are coming in with great ideas, but tell us some of the limitations that you encountered when you were a minister. Because surely these things you should have implemented them when you were a minister, but you didn't. So tell us some of the limitations that you encountered.
Thank you very much for that two solid questions you have raised, my colleague and sister. The first one is to do with the military. I believe our military is a professional military, albeit what happened in 2017 happened, and I have no doubt that the command element in the defense forces realize and see the need for a country that is united, see the need for a country that is moving forward, see the need for a country that embraces its defense forces to do what they should be doing, that is protecting the borders of our country against aggression, against foreign intrusion, not themselves looking inside and dabbling in politics. I hope and trust that these elections will cure the coup. That's why we're saying, let's have these elections to cure the coup. The test of the pudding is in eating. We'll be participating. Let's see what happens. But I have no doubt that the command element in our defense forces has come round to see or accept that they have to do the things correctly. Secondly, the second question you raised was to do with you raised the question of your first question was to do with, sorry for the distraction, I've just been distracted a bit. You raised the question to do with the military. And the second question, if you can come again with the second question.
I asked you about the limitations that you encountered when you were minister, because what you are telling us is things that you should have done when you were a minister.
All good ideas come from people. They have to be supported by a willing team. What I observed in our last cabinet was a jostling for power. Any good program that had popular appeal was susceptible to sabotage and spanners being thrown into the works, i.e. the indigenization policy. You saw what happened just after the 2017 coup. It was affected Chinamasa, contrary to what the law provides for, rushed and cancelled the provisions, but he did not amend the Constitution because our Constitution is very clear. Empowerment is part of the constitutional responsibility of the government to ensure that we uplift our people. But they scrapped the Indigenization Act using the Finance Act, which is contrary to what must happen. If you want to repeal a piece of legislation, you go to Parliament, not what Chinamasa did. Secondly, you've seen some of the progressive, like STEM, the science, it making a huge difference. But again, these programs and projects were susceptible to sabotage. And as a minister, I know what happened within the indigenization framework, where the Reserve Bank got itself involved, petty jealousies, people who just didn't want to see progress happen, did their part to throw spanners, created all manner of problems for us. But in the chair, we'll prosecute these matters to their conclusion in a judicious way, and which will satisfy all Zimbabweans.
Well, thank you so much for answering those questions, Mr. Kasukuwere. Let's hear from Jabulo. Jabulo, let's be brief as we are now wrapping up. We are way after 9:30. Jabulo.
Okay, thank you. Yes, thank you so much, Nonhlanhla, and thank you so much to Saviour for coming through. But my question is just going to be brief. We have heard him speak that when he left Zimbabwe, he had to flee for his life because people were shooting at him. My question will be based, if that was an injustice that was happening to you, why didn't you file any police report against what happened to you? And my second question will be based on why were you not speaking up before you decided to contest? Why didn't you speak up like the things that you are saying now, that the government is corrupt, that this is what was happening and stuff like that? Why didn't you say it when you left the country? And or else you are now saying it now because you want a stake or you want people to feel sympathy for you so that they can vote for you. Why didn't you stand up for the Zimbabweans? Even still when you had the power, when you're a minister, why didn't you say these things were happening? Now you're telling us about Obet Mpov. Why didn't you tell us that 15 billion went missing when you're still a minister? So that because you had the proximity to power, you could have initiated a lot of things that could have saved a lot of Zimbabweans by then. Thank you.
Jabulo, thank you for the historical question. We're talking in the past tense. Ifs don't make history. We have to look into the future. I've outlined some of the challenges that I perceive or saw, and I've also proffered solutions. I think the value of our discussion must be based on interrogating what I am putting across to this esteemed listenership. To ask me, why didn't I do this then? That is water under the bridge. I'm raising it. I've been talking about it from day one. I don't remember when I ever kept quiet about the issues that affect our people. This is my first time on the Zenzel's platform. I've been on number of spaces, and I've been saying this something in all my public utterances. I've not hidden that. Perhaps I don't speak like others do, but I did my part. I thought I was speaking enough. If it wasn't enough in your view, I'm terribly sorry, but I did speak a lot about it. And so really, the shooting at my house, well, who doesn't know about it? And why should I had the police when I was charged with border jumping? It's there, available. The gun, the shells are there. The police saw my house. I'm sure they know what happened, and but you know, this is politics. This is what happened. I'm the victim. Surely, rather than sympathizing with me, you're asking me, why didn't I go and report? My brother, what do you want me to do? What did you want me to do, honestly, when I had to leave the country running, being pursued, being shot at? I think there are certain questions we ask ourselves or each other as a way of trying to make political points. But perhaps we have also got to be sober and soft. Just have patience with others. It's not easy when your family is attacked in the house and almost like left for dead. It's painful. You must have compassion. I know Zimbabweans were hard people. Kasukuwere made mistakes, and I acknowledge. I am not a saint like anybody else. I take full responsibility for my mistakes, but don't also become another incompassionate character who simply says, so why didn't you go to the police when you saw your house was being shot? Are you suggesting that my house was not shot at? Are you suggesting that I was not under fire? Are you suggesting that my life was not in danger? I hold no bitterness. I want us to move forward. But that is what happened. But other questions of why I didn't go to the police, well, in Doda, Mina and Kulumi, it's for you to deal with, honestly.
Well, thanks so much for that response, guys. If you're just joining us, thanks so much for being on board there this morning. We are with person number 34. And my last question to him this morning before we wrap up the space is, when can expect person number 34 to land in Zimbabwe ahead of the polls?
passenger number 34 will be landing at Harare International Airport very soon. And this time around, they will not ask whether he was passenger number 34. You'll be perhaps passenger number 1.
Well, thanks so much for that response there this morning. Thanks so much, sir, for your time there this morning, for this engagement there this morning. Thanks so much for your time, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Yeah, that brings us to the end of the show this morning. Quite an interesting conversation that we're having there with Mr. Saviour Kasukuwere there ahead of the polls. He's speaking about each of the land reform programs, speaking about each of the economy, he's speaking about gender equality. It's quite an interesting conversation. What's your key takeaway before we wrap up the show this morning?
Hey, Brighton, a lot has been said, and also he spoke about the youth, he spoke about mining. You know, quite interesting what he's bringing there on the table. I wonder if Zimbabweans were convinced. I wonder if you guys are going to vote for Saviour Kasukuwere. But, well, you've heard what he has said. You've heard what he's bringing on the table. So, yeah. Thank you so much for joining us this morning on Asakhe. Please don't forget to join us every weekday from 8:30 to 9:30.